Now, did you happen to notice that almost everyone in The Wizard of Oz got to sing a big number except for me? Oh, I had one originally, but no. Out on the cutting room floor, Judy Garland got to sing Over the Rainbow, concert career, cult legend, six husbands, the whole McGill. What did I get? Oh, I had a number originally. They cut it. Yeah. Why, if I had gotten to sing my big number in that Oz film, flamboyant men would be putting on dresses and impersonating me to this day. Of course, I do still have the number that I was supposed to do in the... All right, I'll do it for you.
In 1983, Miss Gulch Returns unveiled the big musical numbers cut from Elmira Gulch's performance in MGM's Wizard of Oz. Who knew? Only Fred Barton. Here to tell us about his original wickedly funny cabaret act and how it has fared since, what's become of it over the last 40 years, is Fred Barton. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good to see you, and good to see you out there.
Why don't you start by telling me a little bit about you and Oz? Was The Wizard of Oz a childhood favorite?
It absolutely was. First of all, I grew up in a household. I'm one of 8 kids. And yes, and so we had a full rack of the original Oz books. I still have some of them in the other room, and the Road to Oz, I think, is an original. The Oz books were just part of our family. Every year they showed The Wizard of Oz, but only once a year. So you can imagine the special night that was. It was practically a national holiday for me. And so I was obsessed with the movie from the get-go. What really kicked in, so I was already obsessed with the movie, but what really kicked in is in 1969, and now I'm 10 years old, okay? So I came downstairs and the New York Times was out on the table as always, and there was a picture of a woman in some odd-looking outfit with short hair, and I'd never seen this person before, and it said it was Judy Garland. And it was her obituary on the front page of the New York Times. And I looked at the picture like, that's not Judy Garland. Because I was still young enough not to understand that actors and the roles they played were two different people. For me, Judy Garland was Dorothy. Dorothy was Judy Garland. I didn't understand how actors and roles differed until that moment. A couple weeks later, by coincidence, I went to visit my grandmother in New York City, and she took me to see Oklahoma at the State Theater in Lincoln Center. And who was playing Aunt Eller? Margaret Hamilton. So I was just thunderstruck. We were second row orchestra, so she was about 10 feet away from me all night. And it was the thrill of a lifetime. I wrote her a fan letter. And 2 weeks later, she replied with a card, her personal card, Margaret Hamilton. And she thanked me, and I had asked explanations of how she did the tricks. And she said, well, I can't tell you in writing. I'd have to show you. If I'm ever playing Boston, come backstage and see me. Well, in 1975, which in kid years is a long time, she came to Boston in a little night music, Stephen Sondheim's musical. I grabbed that card, and I went backstage, and I showed it to the doorman, and he didn't know what to make of it, but he let me back. And she looked at the card and was like, oh, what is this? But she sat with me in her dressing room for quite some time. She was always a generous, wonderful lady with her fans. And she explained and sort of demonstrated with her hands how this trick worked and how she did the fire and how, all of that. In college, I hooked up with a writer who wrote lyrics also. I didn't originally start to write lyrics till later, but he had the biggest gift for parody, pastiche, and comedy. His name is Andy Borowitz, and he's now a world-famous humorist and commentator. And for the New Yorker magazine. Anyhow, we were roommates, and we fell in. We wrote a bunch of shows at Harvard. We wrote the Hasty Pudding Show at Harvard. So we were already pastiche and parody. That was our wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. And I took that to Theater by the Sea, where I had my first professional job, a wonderful summer stock theater on the coast of Rhode Island. They had a late-night cabaret. And I I was a pianist, I was assistant musical director and all that, and eventually musical director. But I loved the cabaret because you could get up and do whatever you wanted. And that's when I played the Wicked Witch in Miss Gulch, and I suddenly thought, oh, what if Miss Gulch appeared in the cabaret? Wouldn't that be funny? It was a smash. So that was the beginning of it. I was already doing pastiche and parody back in college. So when it came time for Miss Gulch, the departure was actually, it was pastiche and parody, but also had the underlying themes, my darkness. And it was a way of expressing my darkness in a funny way, which is, it has to be funny. That's what I tell every cabaret person who I coach. The last part of the story that leads me to this show was that in 1983, I had moved to Los Angeles, and there for briefly, and there was incredible symposium at the Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Theater, and this was when Algene Harmet's book came out, and hers was the first book about the making of the movie, and she assembled all the surviving people as the team to present to a packed house. Margaret Hamilton made her entrance, and the theater went crazy. Screams like you've never heard. It was the most amazing thing. And I felt, oh my God, I'm not alone. And again, there's no internet, so there's no way to commune with other people with your interests at all. And she was so incredibly wise and humanistic and warm and wonderful and philosophical. And my little brain started to think, isn't it interesting that of all people in The Wizard of Oz, the Wicked Witch, that actress, is the most wonderful, kind, human, had all this philosophy to share with the audience. You could have heard a pin drop.
Where were you professionally when this came out?
In late 1981, I was called in by my best friend to help her with her club act that she was doing with her best friend, another friend of hers. And I said, okay. And I didn't think anything of it, to do a 2-night club act. And it turned out to be a little review with 2 people, and it was called Forbidden Broadway. And it was all Broadway music that I knew and loved and had been playing for years on the piano. It was a pastiche / parody of real Broadway. They were doing, I would say, caricatures, or impressions is too strong a word, and I impersonated a Broadway orchestra. So it was a perfect marriage. That show, as you may know, became a smash hit. 2 more people added to the cast. It became 4 people and me. And took off like nothing had taken off in New York in the history of the entertainment in New York since the Chorus Line, maybe. The limos lined up down the street. And there I was, at 22 or 23 years old, suddenly in every newspaper, in every magazine, internationally. It was pretty heady stuff. So I was doing 8 performances a week of Forbidden Broadway. Something got into my skin, and I had started writing songs. And the first song I had written, and this was for another project entirely over at Fox Pictures, and it wasn't seen over there. I actually kind of kept it to myself once I realized how good it was. And I thought, oh, I've got Pour Me a Man. And then I suddenly started writing some other songs. I thought, who's going to sing these? And my girl actress friends weren't singing them. I thought, I'm going to have to do these myself. But how can I do these songs that are very much from a woman's perspective? I thought, well, I'll have to do it as a woman. I had played the Wicked Witch in Miss Gulch in a summer stock production of The Wizard of Oz. So I thought, oh, I could get in that get-up and sing these songs. And suddenly that's how the Miss Gulch show was born. It was from the sequence of a direct contact with Margaret Hamilton and going back to childhood with those books and the movie. So I used the Forbidden Broadway press agent, who was available to me and now a friend. I got that one great picture that's behind you was a photo session that through a photographer who was a cover photographer for Cosmo. I mean, he was the real deal. But he was used to doing beautiful women, So there I come in with my dress and my wig and I look like this horrible thing, and he didn't know what to do, but he took the pictures and got the picture. That picture broke in every magazine and newspaper in New York, and I was on the cover of USA Today. Like I couldn't keep out of the papers.
Well, so once the show launched, it in no time at all was in Boston, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Chicago. It was all over the country. You're on Johnny Carson and Merv Griffin and the cover of USA Today. Obviously wildly popular. Um, Tell me a little bit about how it was critically received.
There are a billion cabaret shows in New York any day of the week, but mine was different. Um, it was not just me singing, my favorite cabaret songs or show tunes. It was all mine. I wrote all the songs. It was a very different type of show. The first one or two reviews just thought, oh, it's this weird, interesting show. But there was one reviewer who so completely got it. It was all a metaphor for being alone and single in New York City. One critic really got that. His name was Bob Harrington, and he worked for a very small publication on Long Island. But I took his review because it was so perceptive, and I took out an ad in Variety. I put the ad, his review, in Variety. That's how I crossed over from a little cabaret show late at night, for the in crowd, to a general audience. And the other thing I will say is that it was the record album that did it. Because a friend of mine said, you got to put out an album. And I was like, you're crazy. Put out an album? Like, how do you even do that? I had no idea. He lined up the financing. He took care of the legal aspects and all of that. And he really produced the album. His name is Fred Barton. And the album came out and sold like hotcakes. I was shocked. I sold as many or more than some Broadway shows. And that LP behind you is the original form. Of course, LPs were what was going on.
Since then, the show has been performed around the country.
What happened was I did it a lot. I did the show for years, like in the 80s, in New York, and then I did it in Philadelphia. These were gigs, out-of-town gigs. Philadelphia. I went on the road with Zorba with Anthony Quinn. I was his associate conductor. And so whenever we went to a town, I could do it. I did it. I did it in Chicago, in Los Angeles. And after a while, I thought, I really can't do this anymore. I can't do it forever. And I didn't want to. I wanted to move on and see what else I could do. And I suddenly got these calls from theaters that wanted to do it because of that record album, because they read the reviews. And I thought about it long and hard and thought, you know what? I'm going to let them do it. Why not? The first one was Indianapolis. A wonderful friend of mine, David Stein, was working with a theater called Theater on the Square in Indianapolis, and they really wanted to do it. And boy, did they do it. The other Indianapolis theater, the big one, I forget what it's called, Circle Rep or one of those, had just done The Wizard of Oz, and they imported all the scenery from like the house and the legs sticking out and all of the scenic properties they brought over into the production of Miss Gulch Returns. And I went to see it. It was a ton of fun seeing it on this huge scale. And it still worked. Completely mixed audience. The most recent actually was just a few weeks ago in a theater called the Bridge Street Theater. And it's in New York, upstate New York. Rave reviews, it was a huge hit for them. It was great. And I didn't get to see it. Unfortunately, it had been delayed for a year by the plague. And I looked at the script, and I was really worried that I'd have to revise the script because we've had Me Too. We've had, the world has changed since 1983. But miraculously, I found that I didn't have to change a line of it, not a word. Something about it just transcended any specific social issues of our day. It was beyond that and totally valid. It held up like 100%. I was so thrilled because it saved me the work. Also, when I first read the script, I was sitting right where I'm sitting right now at this table. I needed to read the script. I didn't remember it very well. I was reading and I made myself laugh. Like 23-year-old me made this version of me right now laugh as if someone else wrote it. I was like, oh my God, this is so funny. This is so great.
Yeah, I have not seen it staged. I've only heard the music now on CD, and I've had the LPs since it came out.
When the theaters write to me, I said, just so you know, the album is only 2/3 of the show. And it's a more involved theatrical exercise involving a lot of acting, a lot of talking. And it's not easy to talk and sing and carry on all by yourself for 75 to 80 minutes.
That gave me two questions.
Yep.
One, songs that took on a life of their own. I personally prefer Born on a Bike because I was born in Topeka, Kansas.
Oh,
But I understand, is it Pour Me a Man that has become sort of a hit?
yes, my hit. That's the first song I wrote, as I told you, that sort of inspired me to write the whole show. And it immediately caught on as a cabaret standard. So other people wanted copies of it, and I thought, sure, why not? And so a whole bunch of cabaret people in New York started to sing it just off, and in the bars and the cabarets and in their acts. And there are a million renditions of it on YouTube. I mean, there's even what do they call that? Anime? That Japanese half cartoon thing. Someone did one of those to my own singing of the song.
If you're a fan and you would love to see it performed locally, is this something that you appeal to theater groups or local nightclubs? Can it still be performed just as a cabaret act?
So I am getting emails from theater companies, and I want to know how many seats they have, what is their season like, what else have they done, for their protection and mine. I just don't want somebody standing up and doing the show in the middle of nowhere, or even in the middle of somewhere, without it having framed with the mechanism of a theater to promote it properly and all the structure you need for a production, a legit production. And so far, that's worked out great.
Before we got started, you told me a pretty poignant story about how the name of the production changed from Miss Gulch Lives to Miss Gulch Returns.
When I first thought of the show, and mind you, I wrote it just after seeing Margaret Hamilton in person at that last meeting of the Living Oz cast members and staff. And fresh off of that, in Los Angeles, I moved back to New York and thought, I felt very free. LA made me sort of slap happy. Like, I could do anything. So I put the show together. I did the first performance November 10th or somewhere in 1983. And it was under the title Miss Gulch Lives, because no one had ever done something with that character before, that character from The Wizard of Oz. I rewrote the show, really improved it, January 1984. And shortly after that, I put posters all over town. Miss Gulch Lives. And Margaret Hamilton very sadly passed away at that moment. She knew about the show. John Fricke was a friend of mine, and he'd been at the first performance and took her the program, a printed program from the show. And she thought it was funny that someone out there had picked up on that character. Like, not the Wicked Witch, but the Miss Gulch character. And she never knew that I was that kid who had come to her dressing room in Boston during A Little Night Music, or that I was the one who wrote to her when I was 10 years old. So she knew about the show, but as I said, when she passed away, I had a dilemma on my hands. I can't be doing a show called Miss Gulch Lives. It's in the worst taste. And I thought, oh my God, okay, I've got to immediately change the name of the show. And the obvious sort of occurred to me, Miss Gulch Returns. And that way it's less of a reference to a living woman. And actually, in a way, it was a better title, because it really more closely describes what happens. Like, she comes back to have her vengeance and to express all this stuff that's been on her mind since 1939.
In The Wizard of Oz, which you mentioned growing up with, there may be 5 illustrations of the Wicked Witch in the whole book, and there's one chapter. She's not the antagonist through the whole book. She's just one chapter. And she has these braids that stick out like Pippi Longstocking, and brandishes an umbrella and pretty much throws tantrums like a child.
Yeah.
Coming across as comedic as anything. Baum did not make her really as terrifying as she came across in the MGM film. So from my perspective, having someone bring a program like yours into the world of Wizard of Oz witchery with a funny character and comedy show is just really a plus. It helps sort of round out the image of what Oz witches are all about.
So it's been an interesting life, and to see, to see you and be able to talk about this show 38 or 40, whatever it is, years later is just amazing to me. And it makes me really happy.
So thank you again so much. I really appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure. It's so great to do this. So thanks for having me do it.
But if you knew of all the years of hopes and dreams and tears, you'd know it didn't happen overnight. I was born on a bike in West Topeka on an afternoon in 1902. Though my mom prepared for disaster, the bike just made me born faster. And lucky for me, it was a bicycle built for two.